You saved for 40 years, built a nest egg of $500,000, and the day you retired, you felt like you couldn't touch it. Not because the money wasn't there. It was. But something shifted the moment you stopped getting a paycheck. Every withdrawal felt like a step toward the edge. So you spent less. You waited. You told yourself, not yet. The number one regret I hear from Canadians in their 70s and 80s is not that they overspent. It's the opposite. They underspent their go-go years, the ages 65 to 75, when they were healthy, mobile, and ready to actually live. On average, they left $75,000 to $150,000 of experiences unclaimed. Not because they were broke, because their brains told them they were. That is a hard thing to sit with. In this video, I'm going to walk through the 5 biggest regrets I've seen from retirees in that 70 to 80 age range. Some are about money, some are about time. All of them are avoidable if you understand the trap before you walk into it. We're going to start with the regret that surprises people the most, because it doesn't look like a mistake while it's happening. It looks like being responsible. Let me show you what this looks like with real numbers. Take a retired couple with $800,000 in savings. Using a 3.5% safe withdrawal rate, a figure commonly used in Canadian retirement planning that gives them $28,000 a year from their portfolio. Add average combined CPP payments at age 65, roughly $32,000 a year. That's $60,000 in total annual income, a comfortable retirement by most measures. But the market drops 10% one quarter. Suddenly, the portfolio screen shows $720,000, and the fear kicks in, so they pull back. They live on $40,000 instead of $60,000. They cancel the trip. They skip the renovation. That gap, $20,000 a year of unused capacity, adds up to $200,000 over a decade. That's not a rounding error. That's 2 round-the-world trips, a cottage down payment, or a decade of experiences they saved their whole lives to have. This is what I mean when I say the math doesn't add up. The plan was solid, the fear was not. Research from the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada points to this pattern consistently. A significant share of Canadian retirees in their 70s report spending less than their sustainable income level, not because they have to, because they can't make themselves stop protecting the number. If you've spent your whole life being a disciplined saver, this trap is designed exactly for you. Your brain is wired to protect the balance, not the lifestyle it was built to support. If you're a Canadian near retiree who feels that same fear every time you check your portfolio, hit that subscribe button. This channel is about helping you retrain your thinking so you don't leave $200,000 of your own hard-earned savings sitting unused. Now, the underspending regret is mostly about money, but the second regret, it's about something you can't buy back. This isn't a new problem. When the dot-com crash hit in 2000 and 2001, a lot of Canadians who had been planning to retire pulled back. Portfolios dropped 40% and people panicked. Some delayed retirement by 3 to 5 years, and the ones who did retire became extremely conservative with spending, a mindset that, for many, lasted the entire decade that followed. Those were their go-go years, gone. The go-go phase is the window between roughly 65 and 75, where health and mobility are still on your side. According to Statistics Canada Life Tables, a 65-year-old Canadian has about a 42% chance of reaching age 85, but only around 15% are still healthy enough at 80 to take a physically active trip. That window where you can actually do the things you planned for, the hiking, the travel, the grandkids' activities, is roughly 8 to 10 years, not 20. Every year you underspend inside that window is a year you don't get back. I used to think that being conservative was always a virtue. Then I watched someone at 72 finally book a trip to Africa, something they'd been talking about for years. 3 weeks before the flight, a knee replacement. The trip was canceled, not because of money, because the body had its own timeline. The math said they could afford it years earlier. The clock just didn't wait. So when we talk about the underspending regret, that's the real cost. Not a number on a spreadsheet. Time. So if underspending is the trap, what's the way out? Not spending randomly. Not throwing caution out the window. The answer is having a system that gives you permission to spend. One that's backed by math, not emotion. I call it a two-bucket approach, and it's simpler than it sounds. Bucket 1 is your non-negotiable income. That's CPP, OAS, any workplace pension you receive. This money covers your fixed costs. Property tax? Groceries, insurance, utilities. You don't touch it for anything discretionary. It just runs the household. Bucket 2 is your portfolio, and this is where most people get into trouble. Instead of withdrawing based on fear or instinct, you use what's called a variable percentage withdrawal, or VPW. The idea is straightforward. Each year, you calculate a withdrawal rate based on your current age and portfolio value. As you age, the percentage adjusts slightly upward, so you're always drawing down in a way that's sustainable over your actual remaining life expectancy. Let's put numbers to it. Same couple, $800,000 in savings. At age 65, the VPW rate comes out to roughly 4.8%. That's $38,400 from the portfolio. Add CPP and OAS payments of around $32,000 combined. Total income, $70,400 a year. Compare that to the fear-based spending of $40,000 we talked about earlier. The difference is more than $30,000 a year. That's over $2,500 a month of breathing room. Now apply that to a real decision. A trip to Italy costs $8,000. Your VPW says you can spend $70,400 this year. The math says go. The only thing standing between you and that trip is the story your brain has been telling you for 40 years about never touching the principal. I'll be honest with you. I used a variable withdrawal approach myself when I retired. And even after I ran the numbers, even after I knew the math was sound, it still took me the better part of 6 months to actually spend what I was supposed to. I checked my account every morning. My wife finally said, "We built the plan. Now trust it." That was the moment something shifted for me. The plan doesn't guarantee you won't run out of money. Nothing does. But it gives you a number you can trust, and that changes how you make decisions. But even the best spending plan can't protect you from regret number 3. And this one blindsides people who did everything right. Regret number 3 is the one that catches people who did everything right. They ate well, they exercised, they had a solid financial plan, and then a health shock hit anyway. Because that's what health shocks do. They don't check your portfolio first. The regret isn't about lifestyle choices. It's about not having a financial buffer for the one thing you genuinely cannot control. Here's what the numbers look like. Out-of-pocket costs for a serious illness in Canada, medications, travel to treatment centers, home modifications. Lost income for a caregiver spouse can exceed $50,000 a year. The Canadian Cancer Society's research on the financial impact of cancer puts that figure clearly on the table. And private long-term care, if you need it, runs $3,500 to $5,500 a month in most Canadian provinces. Public coverage picks up a fraction of that. Let me put that into context. Same couple from earlier, spending a comfortable $70,000 a year on their VPW plan. Then at 68, one of them receives a cancer diagnosis. They need an extra $30,000 a year for 2 years, specialist co-pays, private nursing, travel to a major cancer center, medications not fully covered by provincial plans. If they had been underspending out of fear, living on $40,000 a year, and sitting on unused capacity, that health crisis doesn't destroy them. They have room to absorb it. But if they had no buffer built in at all, that same $30,000 shortfall changes everything. It means drawing down faster than planned, potentially selling assets at the wrong time, and living the rest of retirement under financial stress. A health emergency bucket, a separate pool of 2 years' worth of extra spending, doesn't have to be enormous, but it needs to exist. You might be thinking, I'll just work a few extra years to give myself more cushion. A lot of Canadians think exactly that. But working longer has its own regret, and it's one of the most common ones I hear from people in their late 70s. So why is this so hard? You have the money, you have the math. Why can't you spend it? The answer is loss aversion, and it's baked into how human brains work. The pain of watching your portfolio drop $10,000 feels roughly twice as intense as the pleasure of spending $10,000 on a vacation. That's not weakness, that's psychology, and it means that every time the market dips, your brain is screaming, "Stop spending," even when the plan says you're fine. If you've ever checked your account after a rough quarter and quietly canceled a trip you'd been planning for months, you're not doing something wrong. You're doing something very human. The problem is, that same protective instinct is built for survival, not for retirement. The shift that helps most people is changing the question. Instead of, "How much money will I have left?" ask, "How much life will I have left?" The money is a tool. It's not a score. It's not a measure of how responsible you've been. It's supposed to become experiences. One small thing that actually works. When you're about to make a large discretionary purchase and the doubt creeps in, say it out loud. I saved for exactly this moment. It sounds too simple to matter, but repetition builds new patterns. I had to tape a sticky note to my monitor that said, "You saved this for this." My wife thought it was ridiculous. It helped. Now let's close out the last two regrets. These ones are less about money and more about how you spend your time once the paycheck stops. Regret number 4 is one of the most common, and it comes from the same fear we've been talking about. A lot of Canadians delay retirement by 5 years or more because they're convinced they need more money to feel safe. And here's the trade-off no one talks about clearly. Working those extra 5 years does build your nest egg, and it does increase your CPP. But those 5 years are also your healthiest go-go years. Let's look at the CPP math. If you delay taking CPP from age 65 to age 70, your monthly benefit increases by 42%. That's because Service Canada increases your payment by 0.7% for every month you delay after 65. That's 60 months, which adds up to a 42% boost. So if you'd receive $1,200 a month starting at 65, you'd receive around $1,704 a month starting at 70. Over a 20-year retirement, that's about $122,000 more in lifetime income. That sounds significant, and financially, it is. But here's the question worth sitting with. If working until 70 costs you 5 years of the go-go window, what does that $122,000 actually buy you? More money for a phase of retirement where your mobility and health are declining. For some people, that trade-off is right. For others, it isn't. The point is to make that calculation consciously, not let fear make it for you. Regret number 5 is quieter, and it doesn't show up in any financial plan. When you retire, the built-in social structure of work disappears overnight. The colleagues, the routine, the reason to leave the house. A lot of retirees don't anticipate how much that affects them. The fix is simple, but it has to start before you retire. One hobby you can do with other people. One regular group, a walking club, a card game, a faith community. One volunteer commitment. That's it. One is enough to anchor your week and keep you connected. This isn't about being busy. It's about not waking up 3 years into retirement and realizing your entire social life walked out the door with your job. So how do you actually put all 5 of these pieces together? 5 regrets. 3 things you can actually do about them. First, run a variable percentage withdrawal calculation before you retire, not after. Even if you're still working, knowing your number removes the guesswork. It gives you a specific dollar amount you can actually spend each year without lying awake, wondering if you've gone too far. That number changes the conversation from, "Can I afford this?" to, "Is this how I want to spend it?" Second, set up automatic monthly transfers from your investment account to your checking account. The same way a paycheck arrives every 2 weeks, whether you feel good about the market or not, your retirement income should arrive the same way. This removes the temptation to adjust based on how the market looked this week. You treat it like a pension, not a variable tap. Third, build a life bucket. This is a separate high-interest savings account with roughly 2 years' worth of extra spending. Not your regular income, but an additional buffer. This is where health emergencies come from. This is where the unexpected bucket list trip gets funded. About 1 in 2 Canadians will face a significant health event in their 60s or 70s. That bucket is what keeps a health crisis from becoming a financial crisis. 3 steps. None of them are complicated. All of them require you to decide in advance that you're going to trust your plan more than your fear. If you've made it this far, you're clearly not someone who drifts into retirement unprepared. If this channel is helping you think through any of this, hit subscribe. I'll keep bringing you Canadian-specific tools and the real psychology of spending so you can retire with confidence. 5 regrets, 1 common thread. Underspending the go-go years, not accounting for what a health shock actually costs. Working too long and trading time for a marginally bigger number. Losing your social footing when the job disappears. And underneath all of it, the gap between what the math says you can do and what your fear allows you to do. That gap is the real problem. And the plan we talked about today is designed to close it. You've done the hard work. 40 years of saving, of being disciplined, of making the responsible choice. That part is done. What's left is giving yourself permission to actually use what you built and building in the protections so you can do it without fear. That's not reckless. That's what retirement is supposed to be. If this video helped you see your situation a little differently, I'd love to hear what landed for you. Drop it in the comments. And if you found value here, please like the video. It helps more Canadians find this kind of practical retirement content. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's a good time. I cover Canadian-specific retirement planning, tax strategy, and the psychology of actually spending what you've saved. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.